All right. Welcome in here to the Panther-Lair show, the Panther-Lair post-game reaction. It takes place of our old drive home podcasts. And since we're not driving home, since we didn't fly to Tallahassee, I thought, you know what? We'll fire up the old live stream machine and have a little chat here on a Saturday night. You might be sitting there watching Clemson, Notre Dame. Maybe just got done watching the president-elect and vice president-elect speak and then go back to the Notre Dame-Clemson game. Either way, here we are. For the first time in a long time, because it's been an off week for Pitt. So it's the first time in a long time that we've been here talking after a game. And it's certainly the first time in a long time that we've been sitting here talking after a win. It kind of occurred to me that I started doing these post-game live stream discussions. I think the first one was the Boston College game. So it's been... it's all been losses. It's been the Boston College game, the Miami game, and then, drove home from Heinz Field and did it right here, the live stream after the Notre Dame game. So this is the first time we're going to sit down here and talk about a Pitt win on the Panther-Lair.com post-game live stream. We haven't done that before, so we'll see how this goes. I know that the previous post-game live streams we've done, we've had great great numbers, as they say, great interaction, a lot of people watching, a lot of comments, a lot of questions, a lot of interaction in the chat, and then also a lot of subsequent views. I mean, it all did very well in the analytics. It'll be interesting to see if it goes quite so well after a win. There's sort of an old there's an old sort of rule of thumb in internet things, internet sports and whatnot, that you always get more traffic after a loss. You know what I mean? People always like to go and vent more than they like to celebrate a win. There's always, and so we'll put that to the test tonight with the live stream. We'll see if just as many of you guys show up here after a win as after a loss. So then maybe there's something you said for people, you, after a loss, you're bummed out. You don't want to go out. You're just going to sit around and watch this live stream and hang out like that. Or maybe it's, after a win, you're more inclined to go out and celebrate. So maybe there won't be as many people to show up. But we'll see what comes. But Pitt, obviously, 41-17 win over Florida State today in Tallahassee. A lot to take away from this game. First of all, everybody, you got something cold to drink? I know I do. Josh Lobig showed up in the comments already, and I think jumped in. He did. Josh Lobig jumped in as a super chatter. Josh, we love you. Cheers to you, buddy. You could be a super chatter too. You want to get your comments read. Make sure we get to your comment and your question. You can jump in there with a super chatter. Support the podcast. We appreciate it. Josh said, turns out it's hard to have a rival if you can't win a game. Yeah, we're just going to talk about Pitt here tonight, Josh, but there's certainly, I suspect that the post-game shows in the middle of the state are not going to be as pleasant and cheery as this one is tonight. Things aren't going so hot at Penn State right now. Their losing streak hasn't gotten to 4, though, right? So let's keep the focus on Pitt, though. We'll just talk about the Panthers getting the win over Florida State here, 41-17. Like I said, everybody grab a cold one. Josh Lubig asked if Lobig, I apologize if I'm getting your name wrong there, Josh, but he asked, what are we drinking tonight? I've got Glutenberg. This is from Montreal. I was in New York over the summer, kind of just across the border, sort of almost Buffalo-ish area, just kind of across the border from Erie. And I had this beer, and I didn't know if I could find it, but I found it locally. It's a gluten-free beer, and they really make a lot of different styles of beer. They make a pale ale, a red, a white, a blonde. Those are the ones I got in the variety pack I have, and they actually taste like a real pale ale. I mean, I always give the shout-outs to Arix over in Emsworth. They make a great pumpkin ale. It really is a really good pumpkin ale. It's gluten-free. Well, Glutenberg, which I can't help but think of Steve Gutenberg when I drink it. So, I mean, that makes me extra happy to be drinking the Glutenberg. So, not only is it a good tasting beer, it's gluten-free, but it also has a great, in my mind, a reference to Steve Gutenberg. And who doesn't want a good Steve Gutenberg reference, right? So, that's what I'm drinking. Hopefully, you guys all have something cold on tap tonight, something to settle back and relax with as we talk about a win. And, I mean, first thought right off the bat, And it's the first thing, if I ran into you on the street, if I saw you after the game or something like that, I got text messages that said the same thing. I sent text messages that said this very thing, is they needed that. Before you get into talking about what Florida State is or how good they may or may not be, before you get into talking about Pitt and what they did or did not actually show in this game, before we break, and there are a lot of things to break down with this game, good and bad. And we'll talk about all of them here tonight because it's Saturday night. We don't have anything else to do. But no matter what you want to say, I think it all comes with the understanding. And I think we all have to have this understanding that Pitt needed that in the worst way. And if you need evidence of how much they needed that, of how badly they needed a game like that, look no further than, the first 3, 4, 5 drives of the game. Where Pitt goes out and they get a field goal on their first drive, but they give up a touchdown, where Florida State just marches down the field, and then Pitt goes, what do they even do? 3 and out or something like that? And they didn't go 3 and out. They picked up 1 first down and then punted after that. And then Florida State gets the 88-yard touchdown run. They punt to Florida State, get a really great punt from Kirk Christodoulou, and then get a holding call on it. It pushes them back to the 12. You think, okay. Or no, pushes them back to the 5. You're thinking, okay. And on first down, they stuff them, and you're thinking, okay. This is good. This is a good way to bounce back. And then Jordan Travis breaks out for 88 yards. And I know what I was thinking, and I probably know what you were thinking, because a lot of you were on social media or you're on the message boards. And look, those new threads that were started after that Jordan Travis touchdown, those threads are still up on the message board. We can still read what you were saying, and that's not to shame you, because I think we were all thinking it of, dear Lord, this team has quit. They've quit on the coaches, they've quit on each other, they've quit on themselves, because that's what it looked like. And I mean, when you've got Boyman, or whatever that ACC sideline reporter's name is, when you've got him out there saying that the sideline looks listless and that there's no energy on the sideline, it's bad. Because I could pick that up from the television, just watching the team play. You know what I mean? And I think you probably could too. I think we were all feeling it. That, boy, this team has packed it in. And they might actually go 3-8. They might not win another game. They are... it was miserable to watch. And they needed a spark. They needed something to turn it around. And it came on Florida State's third drive. So you went through the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possessions of the game, thinking, because then, after the 88-yard touchdown run, Pitt didn't even do anything. I think they went 3 and out. That was when the third down play was ruled a fumble somehow, when it was obvious that Kenny Pickett's hand was coming forward. And I thought, the way this game is going, they are going to give this touchdown to Florida State. They're going to let the touchdown stand. So we talk about plays that might have turned the game. Overturning that fumble that was never even close to being a fumble, overturning that play was huge for Pitt. You know what I mean? Because if that goes in as a touchdown, I don't think the momentum ever shifts back to Pitt. And I think Florida State wins this game 41-17, or maybe even something worse than that. Because at that point, it would have been 21-3, and it would have been a lot of trouble. But it doesn't happen. Fumble gets overturned to an incomplete pass. Pitt punts. Florida State takes over. 3rd and 7. Jordan Travis and his wide receiver not on the same page. Bad pass, bad play, interception. A.J. Woods picks it off. Pitt goes 4 plays, 32 yards, touchdown. Huge. Huge right there. And that changes the game. Because after that touchdown, Florida State goes out, and they drove a little bit, but Pitt started getting to Jordan Travis. They got a sack. That was when they called a timeout on 4th and 1 and still gave up the 4th down. Gotta love it. But they start getting sacks. They start getting after Jordan Travis. They start pressuring him well. Pitt gets the ball back. They drive down. Kessman can't connect on a field goal, but they pressure and sack Jordan Travis even more on the possession after that. And then they drive down and score their own touchdown, and then they're really off to the races. The momentum changed on A.J. Woods' interception. The game was saved by A.J. Woods' interception. I really do believe that. And I don't tend to get as much into things like momentum, and energy and vibes and which way these things are going. I think the plays are made. One play is made, and then the next play is made. And it's not about where the momentum is. But there are some situations where momentum is a real thing, and momentum does shift on one play. It shifted on that A.J. Woods interception. And everything that happened after that was, for the most part, pretty much good for Pitt. They still gave up some plays. There were still some unfortunate sequences, like Jordan Addison's touchdown getting overturned and Pitt not being able to score from the one. That was not good. But by and large, from the time A.J. Woods picked that pass off, this game was in Pitt's favor. And it went that way for the entirety of the game. And that's what they needed. They needed an energy boost. They needed something to remind them that they can be the better team on the field. And I don't think these guys walked into the Notre Dame game or even walked out of the Notre Dame game thinking, well, we're just not good enough, or we weren't good enough, or we're not as good as those guys. But when you lose 4 games in a row and you lose them the way that they have lost these games, the 2 1-point losses, and then the, just sort of general incompetence on both sides of the ball in the Miami game, and then just getting run out of your own stadium in all phases in the Notre Dame game, you are going to lose some confidence. I think if you're a human being, you're going to lose some confidence. And you need something to give you, sometimes it's not just enough to inch your way through a win and sneak out of a win to build that confidence back up. Sometimes you need a real shot in the arm. And A.J. Woods getting that interception, playing more than he probably would have if Jason Pinnock was there. A.J. Woods turned that game. I'm not going to say turn the season, because that's way far ahead of what we really need to be dealing with on this Saturday night after this game. But he turned the game, and he saved the game. I would say that. And now Pitt was able to cash in, and that was an important thing that Pitt's offense did today. They cashed in and capitalized on turnovers. Both interceptions, obviously the third interception went for a touchdown on its own. Brandon Hill scored that, and we'll talk about Brandon Hill in a minute. But the 2 interceptions before that, A.J. Woods' interception, DeMar Hamlin's interception, Pitt's offense scores touchdowns off of both of those. And then the 2 times that Florida State turned the ball over on downs, questionable decisions by Mike Norvell, 2 times they turned the ball over on downs, Pitt got points out of it. They got 10 points out of that. So 2 interceptions and 2 turnover on downs, Pitt got 3 touchdowns and a field goal. That's 24 points. That's capitalizing on the plays that your defense is making. No matter what those guys say about everybody's got everybody's back and, there's no finger pointing and everything like that, and I believe them. I don't think they're fighting in the locker room. But, geez, I got to think it feels good if you're the defense, you make some big plays like an interception or a stop on 4th down, that the offense goes out and gets 24 points for you out of it. I got to think that makes everybody feel a little bit better. This was the kind of game that Pitt needed. Now, it might not mean anything when they go play Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech or Clemson, but for right now, in this moment, this is what Pitt needed. And it doesn't change my overall opinions, or probably doesn't change your overall opinions, and I don't think it changes Pat Narduzzi's overall opinions about the coaching staff and the team and what this season has been. And I'm not going to sit here and say that this game erases the NC State and Boston College games or makes the Notre Dame loss less bad. It doesn't. But for right now, what this team needed on November 7th, 2020, it was exactly what they got. They got what they needed. And I said it before the game that this game had a real potential for both of these teams to be a kind of a get-right game, because neither one of these teams looks very good. So each team was going to have the opportunity to make itself feel better about its position in the current season. And it was just a matter of which team would actually take advantage of that. Well, the answer was Pitt, resoundingly. And they score 40 points for the first time since... They score 40 points for the first time since the Virginia Tech game in 2018. 52-22 win. How about this? We'll get to some questions here in a second. Under Pat Narduzzi, Pitt is 9-0 when the Panthers score 40-plus points. 9-0 in ACC games, I should say. In ACC games. Under Pat Narduzzi, when Pitt scores 40 points or more, they have not lost a game. They're 9-0. Now, actually, since Pitt joined the ACC, they're 10-1 in conference games when they score 20 points or more. The only time they've lost was the Duke game in overtime in 2014. Remember that? Chris Blewett missed like a 26-yard field goal. Even more interesting, when Pat Narduzzi's teams score 30 points in an ACC game. 30. Not a huge total. 30. 16-5. And they've won 7 of the last 8 games when they score 30 points or more in an ACC game. Now, the problem is that, the last 8 games that they've scored 30 in an AC against an ACC opponent, that dates back to the middle of the 2018 season. So it's not like they're doing it with any kind of regularity. But when they do get to that level, they're remarkably successful. The Boston College game, the 31-30 loss this season, was the first time, was the only one out of the last 8 games when they've scored 30 points against an ACC opponent, and they've lost. It comes back to everything we've been saying for a long time. Just get to like 30 points, and you've built a defense that's good enough to get to win. Now, I said it going into this Florida State game. I said if Pitt gets to 30 points, they're going to win this game. I was relatively confident about that, largely due to what I think of Florida State in their offense and their defense. But also, it's, again, 16-5 under Narduzzi when scoring 30 points or more against an ACC opponent. And they won 7 out of the last 8. If you want to look for a sure bet, score 30 and you're probably going to win because of the defense that they built is good enough to keep most opponents under 30 points. And that's what they did today. They played very well after they settled down and figured their stuff out, after the first 2 drives. Last thing I want to say before I want to get to the comments and questions. I mean, this is an interactive program here, our live stream on post game live stream. So we're definitely going to go back and forth here. Florida State is bad. They're not good. Yeah, I mean, they earned the 2-4 record that they had coming into this game. They earned the 2-5 record that they have coming out of this game. They are not good. And you could say there's still some respect to be had for going to Florida State and winning. But this Florida State team in 2020, when you've got, pandemic restricted attendance and all these things, it's not the same as, your usual trips to Doak Campbell Stadium to play Florida State and take on the Seminoles. They're not good. Okay? They're a bad team right now. Their defense is really bad, and they don't have a quarterback who can throw. Chubba Purdy, I think, will be good down the road, but he wasn't ready, and especially not behind that offensive line. They were getting him killed. And their defense is just a mess. I mean, you look at Pitt was able to run the ball a little bit on them, in addition to finding holes in his zone and taking advantage of the man coverage. But even if you are a not good team, you can make yourself a little closer to average or even above average if you beat the other bad teams. Neither one of these teams came into this game looking very good. Both were coming off, blowout losses. Florida State got beat up by Louisville 48-16 2 weeks ago. And Pitt, of course, had the 45-3 loss to Notre Dame 2 weeks ago. So they both had that. That's where they were coming into this game. And they were both, I think anyone would look at these two teams and say they are not good. So it's a matter of who can step up and actually show that they may not be the best team in the ACC, but they're not the worst. They're better than these other guys who might be the worst. And, to be honest, coming into this game, I didn't know which team was going to be the one that could make that statement. I didn't know Pitt was going to be able to do it. I didn't know Florida State was going to be able to do it. Well, it turned out it was Pitt, and rather convincingly, because once that A.J. Woods interception turned the momentum, Pitt never really looked back. And we know no lead is safe. Pitt can lose games from a variety of situations and variety of scoring positions. But I felt pretty confident about it. Once that momentum started to swing in Pitt's favor, and they scored, after the A.J. Woods interception, and when they scored again, the next touchdown was that after the Damar Hamlin interception, and they got to, I guess they kicked a field goal. Oh no, they had the field goal. No, they scored the touchdown after the A.J. Woods interception, and then they scored another touchdown after a punt, and then they got another touchdown on another short field after after a turnover on downs. That's what it was. And once it got to that point, when it was 17-14, but then really when it got to 24-14, you just felt pretty good about it. And then obviously James Blackman throws an interception on Florida State's first possession of the third quarter. Pitt capitalizes on that and cashes in with another touchdown. Another one that was 2 plays, 20 yards. You know what I mean? A short field, but they took advantage of it, and that was the key. So, you're not going to get ranked for beating Florida State, but you've at least proven that you're better than them. You know, I mean, you know you're better than Syracuse. You're probably better than Louisville because you beat them head-to-head. You're better than Florida State for sure because of the way you beat them today. And it creates some momentum. It creates some positive momentum as you move into these final 3 games of the season. You're going to need whatever momentum you can get because it's still not a perfect team. It's still a flawed team. It's still a team that's going to be vulnerable to certain types of opponents, or most opponents, if they don't play well. If the defense doesn't come up with some of those splash plays, if you force Pitt's offense to go the length of the field every drive, they're probably not going to have a ton of success. They're probably not going to score 40 points or 30 like the offense did in this game. But they did show what they can do well, which is make plays on defense, and then when they've got it going, they can capitalize on offense. And I think we all learned a lot about Kenny Pickett and what he means to this team and how good he can be and how important he is to this offense, because it worked today. The offense worked. All right, let's get out to the comments, questions. Let's chat about it. Tim Fairley says, so were we that good today, or is Florida State really, really bad? Kind of like I said, Tim, I mean, yeah, Florida State is bad, but today Pitt was that good. I don't know if Pitt is that good, but today Pitt was that good. And, that's helped by playing an opponent like Florida State. And Florida State's not good. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. But there's something to be said for beating the bad teams, and that's what Pitt did today. Let's see. Josh Newark says, here's a hot take. The win takes the heat off of Pat Narduzzi. It would have been pitchforks out with a 5th straight loss. Yeah. Josh, it definitely would have been pitchforks if they had lost this game. And the way it started, it was certainly looking bad. You know what I mean? When they give up those 2 quick touchdowns on the first 2 drives, the 88-yard touchdown run, I mean, I was starting to get concerned. I could show you some of the texts I received and sent, and I'm not going to show you some of the texts I received and sent, but I mean, yeah, I mean, the pitchforks were out then, and if they had gone on to lose that game, or if somehow they had blown the lead once it got to, 3 or 10 points, if they had blown it, yeah, the pitchforks absolutely would have been out. This win doesn't take the heat off, though, because it doesn't cancel out what happened in the NC State game and the Boston College game, or the Miami game or the Notre Dame game. It doesn't cancel out what happened in the Boston College and Miami games last year, the almost law, the Eastern Michigan. I mean, the body of evidence, the things that cause people concern about this coaching regime. It wasn't built on one game, and it's not going to get erased by one game. But for right now, in this moment, they won, and they played well, and they looked like a competent football team, which is the most I was asking for out of this week. And I imagine, that's the most you could realistically ask for out of this week. And then they go back at it, and if they struggle against Georgia Tech, it's going to be the same thing all over again. If they play like this against Georgia Tech, then it'll be another week of, maybe calming down a little bit with the pitchforks. This game doesn't change, the obvious, the staff changes and the staff issues that Pat Narduzzi is going to have to address after the season. This win doesn't change that, and it would take a considerable amount of success through the rest of the season, I think, to change that overall. But that's but yeah, for tonight, the pitchforks should be put away. There are probably a handful of people who aren't putting them away, but they should be put away. Jason Martell says, with a poor offensive line and struggling passing attack, Florida State was a matchup that Pitt needed. Creative having the defensive end standing up in the middle. Kenny Pickett was tough as nails. Yeah, absolutely. Florida State was a good matchup for Pitt on a lot of levels. The poor offensive line, I think, was huge. They needed a game. Pitt needed a game where they could get after the quarterback again and just do what they do. and that's what they ended up doing. What did they end up with? With 7 sacks, I think was the total. Let me just check here. I've got the box score open. Yeah, 7 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. They needed a game like that. They needed I don't want to say to remind themselves that they could do it, because, again, I believe it's a confident bunch. But they needed a game where they actually did it again because they didn't have a lot of success doing that against Notre Dame. The defense didn't play well against Notre Dame. The defense made a lot of mistakes and busts against Miami. They needed a game where they didn't give up those kinds of plays. They needed a game where they got after the quarterback and kind of controlled the line of scrimmage, and that's what they got. And then on the flip side, they needed a game where they weren't facing a great defense because Notre Dame's defense was really good. Miami's defense was pretty good. Boston College played them tough. They needed a defense that was a little bit vulnerable, that was weak. And that's what they got in Florida State. And it's a shame that the Florida State program has fallen to that level, but Pitt needed that, and they were able to take advantage. Now, again, they didn't drive the length of the field really at all. Their longest drive, they went 13 plays for 78. Their longest scoring drive, I should say. They went 13 plays for 78 yards and kicked a field goal. And that was the drive when Jordan Addison had the touchdown, but it got overturned. That was their longest drive of the day. There are other scoring drives. They kick a field goal on a 49-yard drive. They score a touchdown on a 32-yard drive. They kick a field goal on a 26-yard drive. Touchdown on a 41-yard drive. Touchdown on a 47-yard drive. Touchdown on a 20-yard drive. And all these things were situations where they were set up by the defense with interceptions or turnover on downs. And so it was taking advantage of the situation that was presented to them. And there's something to be said for capitalizing on those opportunities when you get them. But Pitt didn't drive the length of the field. So, it's not like their offense was perfect, but they were able to capitalize when they were given those opportunities. You think about the Miami game, there were 2 interceptions that were almost pick sixes, and Pitt got a touchdown and a field goal out of that. Well, today they scored touchdowns when the defense made interceptions. They were able to capitalize. They were able to cash it in, and that was the key. Daminals says, the offense played better. What do we do to run the ball better? I can't break down the scheme for you. Looking at the numbers, Pitt had 37 rushing attempts for 148 yards and 4 touchdowns, averaged 4 yards per carry. Yeah, it was reliable. I thought, they broke off some runs in chunks. Vincent Davis had a 28-yard run. A.J. Davis had an 18-yard run. But, And then at the end, Daniel Carter and Izzy Abanikanda had 7 carries for like 30-some yards or 29 yards or something like that, on that final drive to kind of close things out. And I think that helped the averages as well. But they also got stuffed a lot. They still also looked a lot like, what they've looked like for the most of the season, which is not great. I'm not sold that this running game is turning the corner or getting better. I do want to see more of Daniel Carter and Izzy Abanikanda. Those guys, you watch how they ran on that final drive of the game. They iced the game. They ran the final 4 minutes off the clock, got a couple first downs. And, I don't know what personnel Florida State had in the game, but I know that Pitt had their second-team offensive line playing. And everybody knew they were going to hand the ball off, and Carter and Abanikanda were picking up yards. Now, Vincent Davis and A.J. Davis showed what they can do when there are some holes to run through, and you saw how bad Florida State's run defense is, and so there were opportunities there for Vincent Davis, and he took advantage of some of them, but he still ended with 13 carries for 50 yards. A.J. Davis had 5 for 34, Daniel Carter had 4 for 20, Abanikanda 3 for 15, and Todd Sibley I don't think made the trip. He was hurt in the week prior to the Notre Dame game and didn't play. I'll have to double-check the travel roster, but I don't think he made the trip for that one. He did not get on the field, didn't log any carries or anything. So, what did the running game do better? They played against a bad run defense, which I think is key. Otherwise, we'll see. They were able to take advantage of a bad run defense, and they ran for 148 yards, but we'll see, as they kind of go forward, if they did discover anything and sort of take advantage, anything they can build on as they move into the rest of the season. Let's see here. Josh Newark says, clearly the offense functions better with Pickett under center. I think you just mean like in the game. I don't think you necessarily mean in the center, under center specifically. But yeah, Kenny Pickett, when the comparison point is the Notre Dame game versus this game today, yeah, Kenny Pickett is clearly an upgrade over Joey Yellen, and that's nothing personal against Joey Yellen. It's just a simple matter of the fact that Kenny Pickett's better. This offense does work better with him out there, and I think we saw that today. Brock Madonic says, Chris, what did you think of Brandon Hill after today's game and how the overall defense looked? Well, I mean, I think the defense was outstanding. The defense was really good. They got beat early. They got beat on those first two drives. And Pat Narduzzi said it, I think, at halftime, said that, Florida State was doing some different things, but Pitt got a handle on it and they adjusted and they obviously really kind of shut them down, held them largely in check. I think Florida State had 35 carries for 146 yards on the ground as a team, 4.2 yards per carry, but 88 of those 146 yards came on one touchdown run. So that's about 58 yards on 34 carries otherwise. So good run defense against a team that really likes to run the ball. They obviously aren't good at passing, but Pitt was able to take advantage of that. They get 7 sacks and 14 tackles for loss. They were in the backfield. They did a decent job containing the quarterback, although not a great job. They let some guys get away. Chuba Purdy was even out there scrambling for first downs and not wisely trying to jump over Chase Pine, although he got the first down, so maybe it was a good decision. I thought the defense played well. Brandon Hill, here was another one where you really have to let yourself, when you're watching a game, let the whole game play out before you make any declarations about anything. Because I watched it just like you did, and on Jordan Travis's 88-yard touchdown run, Brandon Hill whiffed. And he said, "Oh, Lord. Well, we were wondering if there was going to be a drop-off from Paris Ford to Brandon Hill. There it is." And that absolutely looked like that was going to be the story with Brandon Hill, that he just whiffed on an 88-yard touchdown run, a play that Paris Ford probably makes. I mean, that'd be the assumption. And so inevitably there's going to be that comparison. Well, Brandon Hill, rounded into form, I think, nicely. He finished the game with 7 tackles that tied him for the team lead with A.J. Woods and Servassier Dennis. He had an interception, obviously a pick 6. He had a forced fumble. And I think overall just played well. It'll be interesting to see, how he grades out. We'll check Pro Football Focus for that. But he, I thought he handled it well. I was excited to see what he could do. I was really looking forward to seeing him on the field because I think he was really good as a recruit coming to Pitt. And, I think a lot of people were excited that he was going to Pitt, and then we sort of forgot about him last year while he redshirted. He only played in a handful of games on special teams and redshirted. And I think we kind of forgot about him. But then this year, he finally gets on the field, and you're like, oh, yeah, he's a pretty good player. And that boundary safety position is the type where you're going to have a lot of opportunities for tackles. That should be, I think we've seen enough over the course of 6 seasons now that boundary safety position should be the one. That should be your leading tackler with the way this defense is sort of designed. Back in the Dave Wanstead days, the middle linebacker was designed that he was going to be the one making all the tackles, and he was with H.B. Blades and, Scott McKillop and then later Max Gruder. But this defense, and we've seen it basically since 2015, the boundary safety is the spot that's going to make a lot of plays. And so Jordan Whitehead, has 109 tackles as a freshman. Paris Ford had 97 or something like that last year to lead the team. And he would have been the team leader again this year, playing that boundary safety spot. And that's where Brandon Hill is. Brandon Hill came in the third quarter in that Notre Dame game, played, half of the third quarter and then all of the fourth quarter, and finished with a team high in tackles. He had 8 tackles. Today in this game, he has 7. But, he's very active out there, and he's a good fit for that position. I was encouraged by how he played. I was encouraged how he bounced back from missing that tackle. And it's, I thought it was overall a good debut. It was a good start for him, and he'll get 3 more games, maybe 4 this year, to really ready himself to be the starter next year. So I think it's, I said kind of throughout the week, if you were looking for an upside in Paris Ford's decision to leave the team, that would be it. That Brandon Hill is going to get a lot of extra reps. Paris Ford was never going to be back in 2021 anyway, and you were going to be breaking in a new starter. Well, now the new starter you're breaking in is going to have, at least 4 games of starting experience before he goes into next season. That's a definite upgrade, or a definite positive. Scroll through here. Royce Beacom, super chatter. Appreciate it, Royce. Thanks for chipping in there and supporting the podcast. You can do that if you want to make sure your comment gets heard, your question gets answered. You can, if you're in the chat screen there, it says say something where you chat right below. There's a little box with a little $sign in it. That's where you can support the podcast. It'd be a super chatter. Throw a couple bucks at the podcast, whatever you like to do, and we'll make sure we get to your comments. And Royce says, it's hard to believe that a 148-yard running game is better. Well, it is, Royce. They don't top 100 too often with this outfit. They're not so hot at running the ball. So going out and getting 148 yards on the ground and really being able to make some plays in the running game, at different points in this game, I think it was really big. I think the running game really came through for them. The passing game is still where the money is made, though, and I think we got to talk about Jordan Addison real quick before I forget and we get to the end of the podcast and we haven't even mentioned him. But 11 receptions for 127 yards, should have had a touchdown. Also 2 carries for 10 yards. And, Jordan Addison was outstanding. This guy, and we've known he's a stud. He's been a stud since he got to Pitt, and I think we've seen it every game so far this season. But, he was really good in this game. 11 catches. I think he was targeted 12 times. And so he missed on his first catch. It was a 3rd and 11 on the first drive of the game where they ended up kicking the field goal. But he caught every pass thrown to him after that. 11 for 11. Catch of 26 yards, 28 yards, 16, 14, 19, should have been 20, should have been a touchdown. He also ran for a first down with 12 yards on a sweep, converted a couple third downs. He's the focal point of the offense in the passing game. And I think I think Florida State knew it, and they still couldn't really stop him. He's an outstanding player, really developed, really mature as a player, and really kind of polished as a wide receiver, more than you would see a lot of times with young players like him. He's really really been outstanding to watch. And I'll tell you the other one too, and I actually talked about him this week. When I wrote in the 321 column on Panther-Lair.com, and I have to dwell on this because I don't often get things right, but on the 321 column on Panther-Lair.com, I wrote about some young guys that I would like to see more of this season, because we talked about Brandon Hill getting extra reps and maybe some other guys getting some extra playing time. But I said one guy I would like to see more of is Jared Wayne. I want to see them get the ball to Jared Wayne a little bit more. I think he has more size than any other receiver that Pitt has right now. And I think he presents a unique weapon out there, to fill a different kind of role, different from what Jordan Wayne does, different from what Shockey Jacques Louis does, different from what Taysir Mack does. And Mack obviously wasn't on this trip due to health reasons. But I wanted to see what Wayne could do. I wanted to get him the ball a little more. And on the first drive of the game, they throw him a 40. Is the first drive of the game? Yeah, a 49-yard catch on 3rd and 11 on the first drive of the game. Huge play. And I don't expect him to get 50-yard catches every day, but he finishes this game with 2 catches for 66 yards on 2 targets. I would give him the ball even more than that. The targets were heavily slanted toward Jordan Addison in this game. But I would keep feeding the ball to Jared Wayne. I think he can make plays for it. I think he can do things and really help you in the passing game. So, seeing both of those guys have good games was I think a big positive for Pitt's offense. And obviously having Kenny Pickett throwing to them helps a lot too. Pickett went 21 of 27 for 210 yards. Pretty low passing total, in yardage for Kenny Pickett, but he only threw 27 passes. So he did pretty well. Let's see. Jason Martell says, it's nice to have Habakkuk Baldonado back. I'm interested to see the snap count breakdown. I noticed Rashad Battle out there too. Yeah, I have to try and check and see. Maurice French. Marquez Williams didn't play in this game. I don't think he played at all. And so that's going to be something we'll have to check on and kind of see what's going on there. Yeah, Rashad Battle played. Their corners were really A.J. Woods, Rashad Battle, and Eric Hallett is what it came down to. Those 3 guys, I think, took all the snaps at corner. So it's going to be interesting to see how those snaps broke down. And, yeah, Habakkuk Baldonado, I'm looking through the box score real quick. It looks like he didn't record any stats, so no sacks. I think he might have had a few pressures, but they didn't give it to him officially. He at least that I can see. They didn't give it to him, give him anything officially, but I think getting him back out there is big. You saw a few plays where he was running around chasing the quarterback, and boy, he can move fast. He's got some speed. He's long and athletic. When we talk about you have to replace Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver after this season, he's going to be a good one to step in there. I like John Morgan too, and I like some of the young guys, but I think Habakkuk Baldonado is going to be a really good defensive end to step in there at one of those starting jobs, and it's good for them to have him back. He hasn't played since the Austin Peay game when he got hurt, and so getting him back from injury is big for this defense. I don't think there's any question about that. Oh, I guess the other guy we have to talk about is Servassier Dennis. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. This guy just keeps making plays. He's just all over the place out there. Servassier Dennis. I don't know who had that on their preseason watch list of Servassier Dennis, but Josh Newark and Brock Madonic both asking questions about blitzing and snaps and those kinds of things. Actually, there's separate questions here. Josh Newark says, would be interested to know the stats of the percentage of blitzes. It seemed really high, and Florida State couldn't stop it. Yeah, it did seem like Pitt was bringing pressure a lot. They definitely gave a lot of different pressure looks and did different things with their defense and with the front, and moved guys around and tried to do some different things to confuse Florida State. It definitely worked. They were able to get pressure on the quarterback a lot, as obviously when you have 7 sacks. I mean, just to see what Pro Football Focus puts out as the pressure numbers and how many pressures they got on the Florida State quarterbacks. But yeah, they did a lot of interesting things, and we'll dig into the numbers this week on Panther-Lair.com to find out, how many blitzes they sent and kind of how the Florida State quarterbacks responded. And then Brock Madonic says, Chris, I was busy, couldn't watch the game. How did the secondary look, and who got the snaps in place of Jason Pinnock? Yeah, like I say, it was mostly A.J. Woods and Eric Hallett and Rashad Battle playing out there. Didn't see Marquez Williams. He did make the trip. He was on the travel roster, but I don't remember seeing him on the field too much, if at all. They did okay, but it was hard. I know I keep saying that I'm not going to dwell too much on Florida State being bad. But it was hard to judge the secondary a little bit because they just weren't doing a great job throwing the ball. You know what I mean? The passes were off the mark. I thought the tackling could have been a little bit better in the secondary, but in terms of coverage, I mean, the interceptions, they were poor throws, and so they played how you would want them to play against a bad quarterback and a bad offense, but still need to see more out of that group and see how those guys continue to work without Paris Ford, and then we'll see when Jason Pinnock comes back. And speaking of which, Josh Newark asked, what's the story with Pinnock? Also assume Taysier Mack was the COVID case. I don't know. I don't think so. So Pitt had one player absent for today's game due to COVID protocols. I don't think it was Taysier Mack. I think Taysier Mack did not make the trip to Tallahassee due to health reasons. I think it's an injury. I don't think this is just my assumption based on just different things I've heard people say and different things people have said to me. I don't think he was due to COVID protocols. I don't. Jason Pinnock, I think, was a suspension. I think it was a disciplinary action, and I don't know what the end point of that suspension is. I haven't been told that it's indefinite. But I haven't necessarily gotten an answer that, yeah, he's definitely going to be back next week. So that might be a question to look into a little bit. Actually, I need to check on Pat Narduzzi's post-game press conference. He might have answered that. So maybe I shouldn't speak without researching that. So I apologize if I'm getting bad info on that one. Let's see here. Scroll down. Let's see. Some other questions here. Pitt fan 234. How do you feel about the defense next year? How did Woods, Battle, and Hill grade today? Well, let me think. One thing I wrote about on Panther-Lair.com this past week was that when you're looking at this defense for next season, all these reps that these young guys are getting now whether it's Marquez Williams playing as much as he had in the wake of Damari Mathis getting hurt, or whether it's Brandon Hill stepping into the starting lineup now because of Paris Ford deciding to leave the team, or a game like today where Jason Pinnock's suspended and Williams doesn't play, so you got Battle and you have Hallett and you have Woods out there a ton. All those snaps, it's going to be difficult this year because those guys have to learn how to play and get comfortable in the field and all of that. But all of that helps for next year. And while it definitely it creates more of a challenge for 2020, it makes, I think it creates some encouragement for 2021. That 2021 shouldn't be as difficult as we thought it would be. And when you look at other positions on the defense, obviously Servassier Dennis has been a revelation. You're going to get a lot out of him next season, just like you're getting, this season. And then, you have other younger guys that maybe aren't playing as much. It would have been good to have Wendell Davis all year. Brandon George was getting some snaps at middle linebacker out there today. Servassier Dennis got some snaps at middle linebacker out there today, in addition to Chase Pine. We'll see about the outside linebackers. One or both or none could be back next season. But I think some of the young guys coming up are pretty intriguing. How about that one play Bengali Kamara made on, I guess it was a kickoff coverage unit. And Florida State thought he should have gotten a face mask penalty, but he just grabbed the guy by his shoulders. And it was explosive play, an outstanding play. And, I think that creates a little encouragement for next season too. And then the defensive line, you're going to lose Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones. I don't know about anyone else. I don't know what Keyshawn Camp would decide to do. Camp missed this game again, so still dealing with more injury situations. But you have Kalijah Cansey coming back. You should have Deslin Alexandra coming back. You should have Habakkuk Baldonado and John Morgan coming back. And then Devin Danielson, David Green. You have a lot of guys coming back, just not the two big ones of Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones. So defense for next season. I don't think it's a complete rebuild. I think you have a lot of pieces to use and build with and build from. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. RJC Man 38, one of our super chatters. Love you. Really appreciate your support of the podcast, buddy. Says, I think Kenny Pickett learned he can make a living sitting in the pocket and stepping up to make throws. He definitely had that opportunity today, and you gotta love Kenny Pickett and sort of the toughness, I don't know what word you want to call it, moxie, the hard-headedness, whatever it is, to still get out and run. He scrambles 10 yards for a touchdown. He had a couple other scrambles out there. You got a bad ankle, and you're out running around and trying to take shots. I don't know. Maybe not the best idea, but yeah, I agree with your point though. I thought he did a great job standing in the pocket and kind of and stepping up in the pocket. Now you need good pass protection. You know what I mean? You need a weak pass rush. You need a secondary you can take advantage of. You need all those things working in your favor if you want to hang in the pocket like that. But Kenny Pickett did a great job of that today. And I think he has gotten better and better with that this season, really. As opposed to last season, I think he's better as a pocket passer this year than he was last year. And so, we'll see if that continues over the next few weeks. I'd love to know how he feels right now and how he's going to feel when he wakes up tomorrow morning. I got to think that ankle is going to be a little sore. But the fact that he was able to get through this game, didn't have any issues, didn't seem to come up limping at all. He came out a few times for Nick Patty to run the ball near the goal line, which was an interesting little twist to the offense. But otherwise, he didn't have to come out. He didn't have to come out and due to injury or anything like that. So, overall, pretty good game for a good game for Kenny Pickett in terms of coming out of it healthy. It seemed like. Russell Amakuchi, why don't they have a goal line package for Daniel Carter? Wouldn't that make more sense than running the smallest back in those situations? Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I guess is the simplest answer. I don't know why Daniel Carter doesn't get more opportunities to run the ball overall, let alone being down by the goal line or anything like that. I'm not sure why he doesn't get more opportunities than he gets. He was hurt for a while. Maybe he's still dealing with injury, and that's slowed down or limited the reps that he's been taking. But I mean, I just don't get it. He's a big back. He's a competent back. He makes plays. He's done a good job when they've given him the ball. But it's just not, it's not clicking. So, for whatever reason, the coaches don't seem to have faith in him. So they throw Vincent Davis and A.J. Davis out there. And as somebody said, Dale Gribble, who's always in here in the live chats, and we appreciate you, Dale, said, I was really mad when Pat Narduzzi said in his press conference this week that he wants the Davises to be the running backs, but they did their jobs today. Yeah, they did. And they had a decent game today. Those guys ran well and made some nice plays. But like I said, when you watch that final drive of the game where Daniel Carter and Izzy Abanikanda, pretty much alternating handoffs back and forth, run out the final 4 minutes and 5 seconds of the game and ice it behind the second-team offensive line, I mean, why not give those guys more opportunities? Particularly when you're not getting anything out of Vincent Davis or A.J. Davis, which happens maybe not this entire game, but it happens for long stretches in a lot of games. Why not let those guys see what they can do? You know what I mean? And give those guys an opportunity. I think they've earned it. So we'll see what the coaches decide to go with going forward. I think that was the bulk of the things I wanted to talk about. Like I say, I mean, it was a good win. It was the kind of win. Well, it's not a high quality win in terms of strength of schedule or anything like that. We know that Florida State is not good. They're bad. They're a shell of what they once were, even 10 years ago or more recently than that. But if you're Pitt, you don't care who it is or who you're playing or the quality of competition. They just needed a win. They needed something to feel good about. They needed the kind of, and maybe even not just a win. I mean, obviously you just need a win just to break the 4-game losing streak. But I think they needed a win to feel good about, something for encouragement, something to give them the confidence and make them feel like, yeah, okay, we can go out and we can play and not just win games, like the Syracuse or Louisville games, but go out and more or less dominate a game, which again is what I think happened after the A.J. Woods interception, is they pretty much controlled the game. And they haven't done that in a long time. I mean, I think they were more or less in control of the Louisville game and the Syracuse game. They still ended up being close, and Pitt never really put them away. So, I think, this was the kind of game they needed. And it may or may not have any impact on the games going forward. It may or may not have any impact on what happens in the final 3 weeks of this season. But for now, for November 7, 2020, Pitt got exactly what they needed. And that's probably going to be my mantra this week. It's probably going to be my what I come back to over and over and say it in a bunch of different ways in podcasts and columns and message board posts and things like that. They got what they needed. And that's all you can really ask for. And I'm not sure, aside from a few points here and there, I'm not really sure what more you would ask for out of this game. So, good win for Pitt in that it was a win for Pitt. That makes it a good win. Just the fact that it was a win. So I think we'll probably wrap up there. Listen, while you're here watching the live stream, we appreciate everybody who jumped in. Appreciate all the likes on the video. That's awesome. Leave a review. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. That way you'll know when we're going live for these post-game reactions or any other sort of reaction live streams that we might do, recruiting news or team news or things like that. So make sure you subscribe to Panther-Lair.com YouTube channel, and also go out and check the website out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. I like to say it's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. I'm going to get done with this live stream and head back over to the Panther-Lair.com message boards and talk with Pitt fans about this game. What did you think? What did you see? What was good? What was bad? What do you think it means going into next week? So go join the conversation there. If you like this podcast, you like this live stream, go check it out at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And we will see you there. We'll be back, of course, on Tuesday night for another live stream podcast, our weekly podcast. That's at 8:30 on Tuesday night. So make sure you are tuned in for that. And then on Saturday, prime time against Georgia Tech, 7 o'clock game. We're going to have a late one on that one. I don't know. It might be. I wonder if that's too late to do a live stream at like 11 o'clock at night. It might be. I don't know. We'll have to see. But we'll make a plan on that as the week as we move through the week. But anyway, thanks for coming out and watching the live stream. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you listen to this thing on Sunday or whenever it is, come join us on Tuesday night at 8:30 to talk everything going on in Pitt sports. We'll see if any news develops between now and then. And until then, have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great week. We will talk to you on Tuesday night.